The White House is planning to conduct a review of all Smithsonian Museum exhibits in order to remove anything that is deemed improper, divisive, or anti-American. And of course, this is causing a lot of heated debate, including one between Jillian Michaels and none other than CNN host Abby Phillip. And guess what? Jillian Michaels ate, and Abby Phillip was the biggest loser. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe, because today we're going to be talking about the White House review of the Smithsonian, which is going viral right now and creating a lot of debate. ABC News is saying that the White House is going to conduct a review of Smithsonian museum exhibitions to ensure they fit with Trump's view of American history. So we can already see the spin that's being placed on this. And of course, this is a topic of discourse because the Smithsonian Museum, to many, is supposed to be this sort of untouched feature in America that is meant to purport our history and a display of our culture, our past, our present, and I guess our future in some ways. Now, Donald Trump and his administration is making the argument that the Smithsonian, that is supposed to be an arbiter of American history and Western culture, has been infiltrated by wokeism, leftist ideology, improper, divisive, and anti-American ideology. So he wants to go in and clean it up a little bit. And you know what? As long as you do it in the right way, that is not, absolving America of its past transgressions or sins or sweeping anything under the rug, I think there's a lot of movement to be made in the direction of removing woke, anti-American, anti-Western sentiment from the Smithsonian. And I'm going to show you some evidence to back this theory up. Before that, though, we're going to get into this clip off of CNN where none other than Jillian Michaels is talking to Abby Phillip and the other hosts and talking heads on this show about this idea that the Smithsonian has veered off course when it comes to teaching true American history. Let's watch.
Have you looked at some of the things that are being
slavery.
reviewed?
Yeah, slavery was a bad thing that was to talk about.
Okay,
like
he's not whitewashing slavery.
So
he's not. He's not. No,
okay.
he's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you look at
slavery,
let's talk about the fact
that
slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people were
do you know
the slave
who
owners.
was the first race to try to end slavery? Well, what's controversial?
I'm very surprised.
This is an extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism.
I'm really surprised.
Revisionism. Do you realize that?
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and who was not.
What I'm trying to tell you is that
in the context of American history.
Okay.
In the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by saying that
it
was white people oppressing black people?
Every single thing is like, oh, no, this is all because white people bad. And that's just not the truth. Like, for example, every single exhibit, I have a list of every single one. Like, people migrated from Cuba because white people bad. Not because of Castro. Yes, no, it's in there. That's what I'm saying. You don't actually know what's in there. Do you know that when you walk in the front door, the first thing you see is the gate?
So there you have it. That's the clip in question. And just to clear Jillian Michaels' claim during that video, she posted evidence of the exact exhibit she was talking about. So there you have it. And I find there's this particular argument that leftists lean on when they're trying to defend this sort of improper, divisive, historical retelling, this revisionist history. They'll say, well, if you go in and alter the things that we've created that are so clearly filled with dogma and our own ideology, you are just trying to sweep your transgressions under the rug. You just don't want to talk about history. They've done this same exact tap dance with things like critical race theory when the right was really like banging on doors and saying, you know what, we need to get CRT out of schools. We don't need to be teaching kids about this oppressed narrative. We don't need to be telling kids that white kids are bad and that black kids are inherently going to be struggling based off of being born black. They go, well, you just don't want to talk about American history then. You just don't want to talk about slavery. Well, no. In reality, in many states, especially the state I grew up in, the state of Florida, it is legislated that we must learn about American history and American slavery at that. So we are not trying to sweep that under the rug. Another time that they pulled this trick was with the whole Don't Say Gay bill, which was really not even titled the Don't Say Gay bill. They just ran with that title in order to drum up controversy, and that was their own little piece of propaganda, which essentially this bill just said, hey guys, we're not going to talk to kids about having sex, about different sexual orientations. We're not going to teach them about transgenderism and all these different gender orientations that they can sign themselves up for. Now, this is not to say we don't speak about the history of those movements in our country. And even in the Don't Say Gay bill, which is really, I believe, called the Parental Rights and Education bill, they've also legislated the teaching of slavery. Can you imagine that? But I bet all you heard was the Don't Say Gay bill. They don't want to talk about gay people. They don't want to talk about slavery. And now when we sort of move on to this whole Smithsonian topic, the review is warranted. I can guarantee you that. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you some examples of what the Smithsonian had up. Of course, we already have the Jillian Michaels example, which she went to in that CNN interview. I'm going to show you an exhibit that they did on white culture. Now, this is titled Aspects and Assumptions of Whiteness and White Culture in the United States. Okay, as we scroll down here, especially for all my white people listening, I'm half white, so we're gonna see how much of this culture I'm invested in. They say if you are into a Protestant work ethic, that's part of white culture. Status, power, and authority is part of white culture. Future orientation. So planning for the future, accepting things like delayed gratification and pushing delayed gratification. That is apparently a manifestation of white culture. Saying things like tomorrow will be better. That's a manifestation of white culture. The emphasis on time, meaning following rigid time schedules and time being viewed as a commodity, is apparently a manifestation of white culture, which is, I guess, why a lot of black people are running on POC time. But we can't talk about that. We're only going to talk about the white culture here. Holidays is an aspect of white culture. Justice, meaning like the English common law and like the protection of property, that's apparently a manifestation of white culture. Here's a big one. Competition. If you want to be number one, if you want to win at all costs, if you have a winner-loser dichotomy, if you think decision-making is vitally important, you are invested in white culture and white supremacy. And I'm so sorry to tell you that. If you think communication is important, and especially communication in the King's English, which I just messed up by fumbling over my words, you are a white supremacist. So yes, this was featured in the Smithsonian. If you want to get into some possible artists that they were going to feature in the Smithsonian, luckily this artist canceled her show after J.D. Vance placed pressure on Smithsonian to eliminate left-wing indoctrination. Now, this artist was going to feature recreations of some brilliant American icons. You guys know the Statue of Liberty, right? I think we all know the Statue of Liberty, gifted by the French. Okay, you might learn that in the Smithsonian, or you might go there and see the black trans woman that was created in the essence of the Statue of Liberty by this artist. Or you know that brilliant, that World War II sailor's kiss, that iconic image, that iconic photo. They recreated that with two gay black men kissing. Actually, guys, I thought I was done giving you examples of exhibits, but I had to come back and actually add in one more. The Smithsonian did an exhibit called Girlhood, It's Complicated. And in this Girlhood, It's Complicated exhibit, they featured none other than transgender activist Jazz Jennings, who was a young kid who I believe started transition at like 2 years old at the behest of his mother. So yes, Girlhood, It's Complicated, featuring Jazz Jennings. And interestingly enough, the curator of this specific exhibit, the chief curator, incorporated thoughts, a quote, about how intersex and transgender stories illuminate and complicate ideas about girlhood and what it means to grow up female in the United States. Yes, it is quite complicated. Again, do you guys still not think this review is necessary? Mind you, the Smithsonian is heavily, heavily, heavily funded by your taxpayer dollars. That's right. That's your money going towards talks of transgender girlhood, the idea of white supremacy in relation to time, competitiveness, and the family structure, and just downright pushing of leftist and woke ideology. I mean, come on. I think we're due for a review over at the Smithsonian. I think it's okay. I don't think he's going in there to go, you know what, guys, let's not talk about the whole slavery thing anymore. I think Americans will just forget the whole slavery thing if we stop talking about it. And if the Smithsonian doesn't have an exhibit on it, I think we can just sweep that under the rug. No, I don't think that's happening. But getting rid of the trans Statue of Liberty and the idea that being competitive is some sort of extension of white supremacy, I'm good with that. I'm good for that. And now here's what's gonna happen. Trump's gonna get accused of stepping into the Smithsonian with his authoritarian regime and erasing American history, when in reality, he's probably cleaning it up quite a bit. And if I find any instance of him erasing American history, I'll be happy to call that out and say, maybe we should leave that for people to learn about. That just so happens to not be the objective of the Smithsonian, at least as it seems today. And I have to remember, and weren't you guys the ones who were tearing down statues in the middle of every single city in this country during the whole BLM riots? Weren't you guys the ones defacing literal icons of American history, whether you liked them or not? Weren't you the ones tearing them down and bringing them to the ground in parks and museums, one after the other? Do I remember that correctly? You guys will remind me. So I think if we go into the Smithsonian and try to sort of reinvigorate a little bit of Western history, which is literally dying, it is like clawing itself out of the grave, tooth and nail, trying to survive, I think we'll be good for that. I don't know what else I can say about this. I mean, that's really it. His objective is titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. And if he stands by this title in the mission statement, I could not agree more that this country needs to move in that direction. We are watching as Western history and Western values are crumbling to the ground right in front of our faces. And if somebody doesn't step in and do something about it, I don't know that anybody will. And to see these hosts on CNN so ardently defend just this neo-Marxist, postmodern view of the world and of history could not make it any more clear that this is what needs to be done right here and right now. It's out with CRT. It's out with the whole white supremacy narrative. It's out with the remanufacturing of history and the revisionist versions of history to make people feel better about their current fictitious identities. Sorry. Guys, those are my thoughts. Shout out to Jillian Michaels for going into the Lion's Den and speaking to CNN. It never goes well for any of us on that show. Let's be honest. And the best we can do is speak out a little bit of sanity, throw a little bit of rationality into the pot, and then walk away and see what happens. And she did exactly that. So kudos to her. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, if you disagree with anything I said in this video, do get out, but do so respectfully. I encourage healthy debate on this channel. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is every day. And I will see you guys tomorrow on time, because I'm a white supremacist.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.